Finding Dory isn't as scary or dark as Finding Nemo, so this film should probably be a little bit more accessible for very small children. It certainly doesn't have the kind of horror and perilous scenes that are in Finding Nemo, especially when Bruce the shark appears in the first one, if you remember. There is one slightly dark scene in this film, and it happens when there's some darkness behind a couple of characters, and then an eye appears, and then these two characters, or three characters I think it is actually, are pursued by this creature with tentacles and very sharp teeth. It happens very quickly and it's over very quickly. It doesn't have that same sense of danger, as in Finding Nemo when the sharks were chasing Marlin and Dory. So this one just seems a little bit more accessible, and even the overall themes of the film, the overall tone of the film is much more sort of diluted in this film. Dory and her search to find her family, it doesn't feel quite as urgent or quite as perilous or quite as dramatic as Marlin's search for his son in Finding Nemo. So for that reason, it's actually, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing because smaller children won't go home and be terrified like some were after watching Finding Nemo. Having said that, it's important to note that the feel of the film, the feel of the series hasn't at all been diluted. It still feels very, very warm and fresh and wonderful to be a part of. In fact, the whole duration of the film, it's just such a joy to be back in the waters with these characters. So it really is something to look forward to. In terms of violence, again, well, it's very comic book, very cartoonish violence, and I don't even like calling it violence. The kind of things that happen to some of the characters, and again, let me point out that this is only very minor. There's things such as, people bumping, or characters I should say, bumping their heads or bumping into walls because they can't quite see properly, being thrown or catapulted through the air, sometimes accidentally, sometimes not so accidentally, and literally being a fish out of water and that kind of stuff. So, but it never really feels dangerous or feels like anybody's actually been hurt or injured. So that's the kind of thing you can expect. There's a little bit of reckless driving, there's all sorts of fun and things that kind of happen, but none of it I really like to even call violence. Like I said, the only really dark scene is this one pursuit scene from this kind of savage looking creature, and then once it's over, it's gone and you never see this character again. So the film moves on very quickly after that. So in terms of violence, I don't think there's a whole lot to worry about in this film. Likewise, blood and gore. There's no blood and gore in the film. The closest thing that comes to anything squeamish would be there's a bit of, a character sneezes a few times and it looks like green gooey snot comes out of this character. An octopus character inks themselves, and that kind of thing. So again, nothing particularly gory or bloody either. Now, this sex in the film, no sex, no nudity at all. There is one mild sexual reference. A character is kind of confused about where a conversation is going and they accidentally start talking about where babies come from, and they're cut off very quickly, so the scene doesn't continue, the conversation doesn't continue, and obviously it's meant just to give all of the parents in the audience a bit of a giggle. So sex and nudity isn't an issue. Likewise, drugs and alcohol. There's no drugs and alcohol anywhere in the film. The closest thing that might be considered alcohol is in one of the opening shots. There's a fish is seen swimming around some bottles. They look like bottles of wine, which have been thrown or sunk to the bottom of the ocean floor. They don't have any labels on them, so they're just bottles, but that would be the only potentially alcohol-related thing in this whole film. And again, the language, there's no offensive language, no swearing at all, and not even any real name calling in the film. So, as I said, this is a very accessible, very family-friendly, very kid-friendly film. The only one thing that I want to mention that I just found a little bit uncomfortable in this film, and this could just be me because I'm a fairly sensitive soul, but I just wanted to bring it up. There's one scene, or it happens a couple of times, where there's some side characters that you don't see too often in the film, and they end up kind of taunting or teasing or putting down another character. Now, this character is very obviously and very comically simple-minded. This character doesn't speak, but they seem very, very simple-minded and a little bit not right in the head, if you like. But this character just gets treated a little bit badly by these two other characters, and I just felt uncomfortable with it, particularly considering in Finding Nemo, the whole opening of the film talked about Nemo's little lucky fin. He was slightly malformed as a fish. And you could even argue that this film, Finding Dory, which takes place a few years after Finding Nemo, Nemo hasn't grown much. So there's obviously a little bit going on in terms of his ability to grow. He seems like a fairly malformed fish in different ways because he's still the same size. And he's got this, the lucky fin. And so I just found it a little bit, I think, out of place and a little bit mean that these two characters kind of put down this other little simple-minded, if you like, character. You might see it and it's meant for comic effect, so it's funny. You might not think anything of it. Maybe I'm just a sensitive creature and, it flagged for me. But anyway, if you do go and see the film, and of course you're going to see Finding Dory, who isn't? Make sure you stick around for the end credits. There is a post-credits scene, so it's worth sticking around for that. And I should add that, look, not only is it amazing to be back in this world, this beautiful world, of this underwater glory that is Finding Dory, but expect to see a few old characters from Finding Nemo that do reappear in cameo roles, as well as some new characters which are just as fun and just as exciting. So go and watch the film, and please, please, please do tell me what you think in a comment below.